Well, hello, everybody, and thanks for tuning in to the Storytelling Alchemist show that is on every Wednesday at 10 p.m. Eastern on this YouTube channel, and later on will be on demand on the Los Angeles Tribune, Roku TV network. So tonight it's going to be a great show. I have a gentleman that I think his name of his business is really powerful. The name of his movement, I guess we want to say it, is we call him the Oneness Guy. He was introduced to me by a friend of mine about a couple months ago, and I've been seeing his posts and seeing all the great energy that he's putting out there, and I'm really excited about having him come on and talk about oneness. Please welcome to the show, Danny Rongo, and I'm going to bring him on. Hi, Danny. How are you?
Jeremy, how are you? And hello to all your dear friends. Thank you so much for having me, man. This is great. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. So, well, first, I just kind of want to talk about, you've been in this developing your spirituality for a long time. I was just reading, 40 years now. You've been working on this quite a long time. Am I correct?
Yes, absolutely. It's been, like all of us have our stories, Jeremy, and it's always a journey, and it always takes turns. Mine is no different. I just happen to be a singer-songwriter, actually, by trade, and I just found myself probably in the better part of almost three full decades ago, like when I was in my 20s, and I was writing songs, and my lyric content, Jeremy, always had a common theme, like I'd like to call it, where it was always about unifying. And at the time, I really wasn't sure what it was. I absolutely didn't even know the term oneness, to be quite honest with you. I was just writing songs that had the premise of bringing us together to try and unify, I guess, humanity, if you may. So I didn't argue. I didn't fight that intuitive pull. I just kind of went with it. So as like time went by, I sensed that it wasn't really stopping. So like I said, I just kept writing songs, but then I was like, all right, I'm onto something here. So as time passed by, and I continued my own readings with different authors and spiritual messengers, that's when I started to uncover the concept that is oneness. And I went, that is when the proverbial light bulb went off. I said, this is what I'm talking about. Oneness, the state of being completely united with someone or with something. That's how the definition is stated if you look it up in a Webster's dictionary or something along those lines. I said, wow, this is perfect. So the timing of it for me was good. Like I said, it started with my music. It developed through that. I kept reading the likes of, especially Dr. Wayne Dyer, who I reference often in my books, on my podcast, in my talks and performances, especially because he was the soul of it for me, and pretty much everything stems from him and how I developed as someone who speaks about this stuff. But it was beautiful, Jeremy. I loved it. I loved the fact that I like to say I was onto something, at least in my own world. So as I moved ahead through life, I met my wife, and she understood what it was about. So that really, really helped things for me. That obviously to have a partner who understands and who buys into it too. So and then it just kind of took its wings, you might say, from the music, which led me to writing actually a musical that I was lucky enough to perform throughout theaters in New Jersey, and actually took me to Broadway for a performance, which I'm still very proud of. And that performance led to my first book, which has been out there since 2018, and now which led me to my second book, which I just released probably about just a few months ago. So it's been a cool ride, my friend, to say the least.
It sounds like it. It's funny because I was looking at I'm not sure if this is your first book or I Am God. Is that your newest one? Or
no, that is the first one. And there it is.
Okay.
That's the first book. The second book is called The Ways of Oneness, Helping to Navigate Life, which is, I don't necessarily want to call it a continuation of the first book, Jeremy, but that stemmed from what all of us were going through going back to, I guess, March of last year, March of 2020, when the whole world kind of put the brakes on thanks to the COVID, thing that we were all going through. I was in lockdown, and to be honest with you, I really, Jeremy, I was having a hard time dealing. There was so much negativity, so much divisiveness, especially about this one event that we were all faced with. And it actually led me to shut down all my social media accounts back in the early part of 2020. I stopped my Facebook account, I stopped Instagram, I stopped Twitter, because I just hated the divisiveness. It wasn't adding anything to me, it wasn't helping me, and I was having a hard time just getting through it. So I said, you know what, let me get back to myself and put the brakes on. So my wife and I, Jeremy, stopped watching the news completely, which was probably the best thing that we ever did, especially the early part of last year. We stopped watching the news, and I just started to reflect. I said, okay, what works for me? How do I get through this fear of this? Because I recognized it as a fear. And I always say that there's only two energies that everything flows through from life, and it's love and the opposite of love, which is fear. If you ask me, people say that it might be hate, and I say, no, it's not hate. The absence of love to me is fear. So that's what I use. So I said, how do I get through my own fear? After I did the soul searching and some time, I just started to write things out about how I could get myself through this pandemic. And after I started writing, Jeremy, I started to realize, okay, I might be onto something here. So I kept writing. And then I said, well, how about not just how to navigate through fear of a pandemic, but how about something that can help us all navigate through the most delicate and emotional aspects that we face in life. So then I started to think of, okay, what else do we got? Well, obviously there's a pandemic, which I consider a crisis. There's love, there's hatred, there's death, there's duality, health, energy. So, I started to come across headings for chapters like this. And then, Jeremy, I get inspired sometimes. I'm sure the same way you do, my friend. When we get inspired, like, it seems like time stands still and we just flow, right? That's when you're inspired or in spirit, as I, have heard it called by, again, back to Wayne Dyer. So it just came to me really, really easily, to be quite honest with you. So I spent the better part of 6 to 7 months of 2020 writing this next installment of Oneness. And I love how it came out, and I'm excited about it.
Well, that is really cool, because it's interesting. I actually lost my social media. I didn't just shut it down. Like, it was literally just shut down by Facebook and Instagram.
Really? Was it due to because something you were writing? Was it censorship, or you just got a problem?
The only thing I can think of is that I'm connected to some people that they express their views on their blogs and stuff like that, but I've never, if anybody knows me, I always put up positive stuff and positive.
I know, yeah. Everything that I've seen from you is absolutely beautiful, and truth and loving. So, but again, that's what sometimes people like you and I are up against.
So one of the things that I realized, and it's kind of like what you saw, is, yeah, of course I went through this. I just lost like 11 years of pictures and probably 300 videos. I went through all that. I found a lot of them, but what I realized is that it cut out thousands and thousands of people that necessarily weren't at the same place I was, I guess is the way to put it. And I was up to that point getting really, I just did a video on it recently called the ping pong effect. That duality mindset. Where we're just ping pong, ping pong, ping pong. And so you're not in balance. And so it was one of the things I considered it a blessing, just like you shut down your social media.
Yeah.
I for about 4 to 5 months, I was off of Facebook and Instagram, and I'm just now getting back on, as you can see, and rebuilding. But it's one of those things where I agree with you. It has to happen in oneness, to me, because we're all a part of this or something greater than us, I guess. it happened because it was supposed to happen. And it's one of those things. And I feel very clear. As a matter of fact, I don't know if you experienced, well, you did because you wrote a book. My creativity is so strong now, as opposed to where I was so caught up in my social media and so like not where I needed to be in the now of the moment. And so now my social media, some of my friends get a little frustrated with me because I don't have Facebook Messenger on my phone. I don't. I'm like I usually am like, there's this old-fashioned thing called a text message. I heard you type in stuff, and you can actually send this message to me.
Nice, right?
And they're just not used to it because we're so used to these conveniences, and so I think you did the right thing. What did Timothy Leary say? What is drop out, tune out, or I can't remember his exact phrase, but he didn't know about social media back then.
No. Honestly, I don't miss it. And out of the platforms that I have restarted, if you may, again, it's only been on Instagram and Twitter, and I've maintained a YouTube page as well. I just personally don't like Facebook anymore. Ever since that, and so I just stayed away from that. And I honestly don't miss it because I still hear through the chatter some of the narrative, and it's still centered around so much divisiveness, and I just don't need that energy, Jeremy. It's not fun.
And I think based on your message of oneness, when we're constantly at odds with each other, we're not acting in oneness.
Absolutely not.
We're literally, it's like, especially when you're pointing fingers and you did this to me and I'm angry and all this other kind of stuff. And I'm the same way. I won't even, I've been kind of picky about who's on my social media now.
Good for you.
And so, because it's one of those things, I had built it based on, this is my business, all that kind of stuff. But with that being said, our business is about getting people to understand who they are at a higher level, I guess, a higher frequency. And we don't want to be a part of all that stuff. So good stuff. So the new book came out a couple months ago.
Yes.
Will they find that at you've got a few websites. You got DannyRongo.com, and you got the OnenessGuy.com.
Correct. Yeah, I have links on both of those sites because that second book right now, while I'm still shopping through traditional publishing offers, is only available as an Amazon Kindle as we speak, because I'm still looking through some things, and that's a process that I learned with my first book that was published by Balboa Press, which is an affiliate of Hay House, and I chose them specifically for that connection. But it's a process that takes anywhere from like 6 months to like a year and a couple months, and especially because we're finding our way out of COVID, out of the pandemic, I said, I have to get this out there. So I just took it upon myself, and I went through that Amazon channel, like I said, Kindle, and it wasn't a bad process, Jeremy, to be quite honest with you. I was expecting like it was going to be a horror story because you have to like upload like certain files, you know what I mean? And it's a lot, because I have, like I had my manuscript only in a certain Word platform, blah, 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 and it had to be changed, but it really wasn't that bad of a process. So like, since I did it, it's not. So I said, you know what, this ain't bad. So I put it out that way, and that's how I've been marketing that. And plus I've been talking about a lot on my shows and performances as well too. Like, especially like I said, because we have found our way, it looks like, at least for now. And here in New Jersey, we're just starting to come out of it now. So I wanted people to say, hey, that there's a way to not only navigate getting through and in any kind of life crisis, but these other aspects of life, like I mentioned before, your health, your energy, your love, there's hatred in all of us to some degree, family, choices. We're all doomed to make choices. So I selected about 14 like really specific aspects that I know touch me the most, that I've had the most, concerns with in my now 60 years. So, those are the ones that I chose.
So what are some of the things that the pandemic or whatever the crisis that's happened over the last year, because there's been more than one thing. I don't necessarily want to go into all of them, but there's been a lot for the average person to comprehend and go through. What are some of the things that you would suggest for people to get through? Because I mean, we're not going to avoid hard times. There's going to be
absolutely not.
So what are some of the things you can do to manage that?
Absolutely not. Well, you can couple in this pandemic pretty much with any adversity that you're facing in life, and it goes to how we process things in life. If we choose to take in negativity to any degree, all it does is weakens us. So I've always said that anything positive is empowering to us, anything negative weakens us. How do we know the difference? You have to be receptive to your intuitive feelings. You have to be receptive to how you feel. Most of the people on this planet, when they thought about that pandemic, it was from a fear base, Jeremy. I did as well. And I'm sure to some degree you probably did too, because there was the uncertainty of it. Because this was unprecedented. And so there was that uncertainty of it. So it's like, okay, I'm a little bit afraid of this. I don't know what it is. And now you're hearing so many stories about, all right, everyone's going to get it. That was the first thing that came out. There's no stopping it. And then you heard people talking about the numbers were skewed and X amount of people died versus the reality of it, which was not the case. There was so much going on. And I just came to a place where I said, hey, if I allow myself to think along those fearful thoughts, because again, I've always said, there is no such thing as fear. There's no such thing as anxiety. These are just ways that we think. We have fearful thoughts. They can do damage, as we all know. It can create physical havoc for us, but it stems from the way that we're thinking. So if I allow myself to address a pandemic or a crisis in any way, shape, or form from a foundation of fear, that's not going to serve me. And I went as far as to tell people, if you believe that you're going to get this thing, well, guess what? You're getting it. Because as you think, so shall you be. It goes back to biblical phrases like that. And that's the truth. As we think, we're just a collective sum of choices and thoughts that we've made throughout life. So when we look at it from that perspective and say, all right, I'm afraid of this thing, I'm not saying that it didn't warrant concern, but when concern grows so much, Jeremy, and it weighs people down and it becomes a negative energy, that's when it depletes us. And that's when it does the most damage with us. So you really have to get a control. The only thing that we can control in our lives is how and what we think.
I think you hit it on the head too, because it's like, there's discernment, obviously, that, any type of fear, like, people say, well, shouldn't you, fear moving, standing in front of a train. I'm like, well, duh. Don't go stand in front of a moving train. You should be afraid of that. And that's not even fear. That's discernment of what is correct for you or not correct for you. But I think you also said something really powerful when it comes to relying on spirit. And so one of the things that we don't necessarily do as human beings is we don't get into the essence of relying on oneness or spirit or whatever you want to call it. We automatically go into the worst possible thing. And that's honestly what happened last year when all that stuff started happening. Of course, I was like, first, I didn't even know what was going on, to be quite honest with you. And I was going to Disney World and everything else.
Nice.
And most people are like, know me. They're, it's just kind of like, da 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 da. And so, but then I kind of, went into that state of asking. And I've heard very much, get quiet, get still, and listen, when I was in my meditation. And I just want to give some shout out to a couple of people watching. Hi, Stan and Linda. How are you? And hello, Dr. Forrest. Yes, understanding oneness is key. And but I think you hit it right on the head when it comes to, like several years ago, I was in a really bad state in my life, and I really heard very strongly, "We can't help you unless you ask." And so I didn't realize I was so busy in my stress and anxiety that I was forgetting to even ask the smallest little thing, like a glass of water from somebody. So
Yeah.
and those are one things that we get caught up in, and I think that was one of the key things to navigating. And I agree with you through the pandemic or whatever we go through in our lives in the future. So
All we can control is ourselves, and that's something that in my talks and stuff, I really try to emphasize that. Like even to the point where, like some people, Jeremy, like I said to me, doesn't that sound almost kind of selfish? And I'm like, yes, and I want it to be. I want people to understand the fact that you are the only one. This is your world. You're the artist. You're the creator. No one else. We're just an extra. Jeremy, I'm an extra in your world. You're an extra in my world. It's our own world, but we have to create. And how we create is depending on how we think. That'll be what's going to manifest in our life. So if it's going to be from anxious thoughts and fearful thoughts and worrisome thoughts, that doesn't serve our higher purpose, because we come from a divine plan. We come from divinity where there is no fear and it's only love and there's abundance. So we should be thinking all along those lines as we consider oneness and all that it is.
Yeah, absolutely. There's just so many things we could spend quite a while.
Yeah, we can go for for a long time, my friend.
One of my favorite subjects to talk about. It's funny because I actually brought oneness up. Two things. About maybe 16 years ago, I was speaking at a metaphysical church, and I thought they would have been open to this, but I said, "You are God," and they didn't take that quite very well.
No.
And it was really weird. Now, of course, you mentioned that to people, they're like, "Yeah, I know that," and I'm like, "Yeah, well, you should have said it 16 years ago."
Yeah. Jeremy, think about it. Like, I went out with a title like this, if your friends can see it. You know what I mean? Yeah. And like, I understood the shock value that title represents. And that's what I basically stand by, because we are, born to, like, from, having this separate connotation drilled into us, that we're separate from source and especially separate from God. And not to go into a whole kind of religious thing, but it's the religions that put that line in the sand, and for their own reasons, fear of it most of all. But they're the ones that draw that line and say, no, you're not one with God. God is separate. That's how I was raised. That's how so much of this planet was raised, to think that we're separate. So the fear stays in place. So we can't, and most of society will not consider those words to say, I am God, but we're just an individualized expression of a source. I happen to call it God. I say, you can call it whatever you want. You can call it this beautiful bass guitar here behind me, by the way. You can call it whatever you want. We are individualized expressions of a source. And that source is energy. I use an acronym, Jeremy. Like in my books, I call it STEVLS. And that stands for spirit, thought, energy, vibration, love, and soul. I just shortened it. I just took it on. I said STEVL. So I use that a lot, because those 6 words to me are interchangeable. We can use any one of them to pertain to what we are and what we emanate from. A lot of people gravitate towards thought, which I used in the first book a lot, because when people think that, okay, what am I? Okay, I can wrap my head around being thought, because I'm always thinking, which is fine. But obviously we're the awareness behind the thought. But it's that we come from that one source. And so many people like voluntarily choose not to accept that. And that's what, drives me, I guess, to a lot, because I can speak to you and I can speak to other people who speak about things like this, and they're like, spot on, man, right on. Yeah. And I know that, but our message, right, is to try and inspire other people. Like, I'm not telling anyone how to live or what to think. I'm just sharing what's been, pouring out of me for like decades now, because I'm compelled to. It drives me to do so. You know.
You know what really sold it for me is of course I was talking about oneness, and then there was a passage in the Bible, and it was talking about, Jesus was talking about the many aspects of the body of Christ. And he was talking about basically in reference to like different, the toes and the feet. And I think it's 1 Corinthians 12, if I remember right, but I'd have to look it up. But anyways, regardless of that, I started thinking, I was like, well, wait a second. I was like, so in my body, it's one body. And so therefore, I've got a lungs and hearts and a heart and all that kind of stuff. And my heart can't just say I'm a heart and that's it. It literally has to say it's a part of my body.
Yeah.
And you can't say, well, that's just a toe down there.
Put a little toe down there.
Right. And if the lungs say to me, well, I'm no longer going to work for you anymore, well, that's going to be a huge issue.
It's going to be a problem.
So in oneness, it's kind of like in business, we talk about synergy, having synergies within business, and, team environments. And we teach a lot about team dynamics and stuff like that. Well, the same thing has to happen in your body. And that's part of the problem with our health issues when I think it's Dolores Cannon calls it dis-ease within our body. And then Louise Hay talked a lot about that as well. And it's because your body is no longer in unison, and the chi or ki, whatever you want to refer to it, is not flowing correctly within the body, and it's not in oneness. And so that's really there's a lot with that. I think you're right on the money when it comes to that, because our doubt or our fear, our anxiety stops the flow of the essence of life, which is the energy of God,
and it's supposed to be flowing through us. And I even love how they separate the word disease, dis, and then hyphen dis-ease, because everything is supposed to come to us from a form of ease. So when we put blockage up in the form of negative thoughts and negative energies, that's what creates disease, that dis-ease. Because like you said, the atoms don't flow. Everything is energy. This is where we can tie in all the things that Deepak Chopra's been talking about for decades with quantum physics and stuff. But, like when you break down atoms and molecules, when you look at everything, you can take any solid, take a rock like this, break it down, and it's nothing but, air. It's energy. At its purest form, and that's what we are. And we just have to allow this energy to flow to and through us. And hey, listen, by all means, Jeremy, obviously it's hard for me too. It's hard. It's people asking it's easy. I'm like, why did I have to sit down and like write a book? Because I was experiencing the same fear that led me to write that book, because I didn't like how I was feeling. There was an uncertainty, and the only thing that I was able to relate to it was I was there on 9/11. I watched those towers come down. I watched people jump. That was the only fear that came close to me. What I should say to this pandemic was the fear that I personally experienced on 9/11. And I said, I don't want to. I got to find my way out of this. So I did, And I'm still finding my way. Life isn't, it's like they say, right? It's always a journey. We're always learning. No one ever knows it all.
Yeah,
we have to keep moving.
You can't possibly, and nor do I want to know it all.
Exactly.
Because it takes the fun out of it. And, it's like I enjoy my mistakes just as much as I enjoy my successes. And
because it proves that we're alive, Jeremy, right? It proves the contrast, it proves the duality, that here we are as these spiritual beings having this human experience, and every time that we experience something in this life form, it just reiterates that the fact that, oh, look at the blessing of that, to be able to, like, this is life, this is what they said, this is what we signed up for, to experience this. And I like finding myself, as I'm getting older now too, even some of the quote unquote bad things, I don't like to judge anything that happens, But, you know, like when you look at things and say, wow, okay, but still there's something to it. It's proving life. It's reflecting. That's all it is.
It's interesting. I don't know if you feel this. The deeper I get in my spirituality, and I've been, you know, practicing, I guess, and studying this since '97, I guess, and so 23 years. My probably about 2005, 2006, my body had so much pain in it. So I was in my early 30s. Had so much pain in it that I had trouble getting out of bed. But the deeper I get into my inner work, I don't have that kind of pain anymore. I mean, yeah, of course I have things that come up. You know,
Sure.
I threw my back all last year, and you know that wasn't fun. But majority of the time, the work that I do, I don't have those kind of. And I have a girl that does my massages, and she's always like, "You do not feel like most people."
Really?
And I have a fairly stressful, job, during the day managing training departments and stuff. So, and so he's like, I don't know how you do all this stuff, including a show, and not have the stress. And I'm like, because it's this work that you do, and the more and more, as Linda mentioned, that we need to eat light to become the light, And so the more light we bring,
I love that.
Yeah, I'm gonna bring that back up there because I thought that was great and really powerful statement.
Awesome, Linda.
Yeah, it's good stuff, and so it is true, because what's the story of the two wolves? Whichever one you feed, you can feed the wolf that's darkness, or the wolf with light. And what's that all about? It's about, what do you nourish in your life is what, like you mentioned, what is what we attract. What did Wayne Dyer say? We don't attract what we want, we attract what we are.
What we are, correct.
So I have a funny story. I put that quote up on social media a couple of years ago, and somebody got really mad at it. Literally,
Someone got mad at you for that?
Yeah, I got mad at that. We don't attract what we want, we attract what we are.
Well, think about it, my friends. Like, right up to the fact that I'm here speaking with Jeremy and your friends are watching, this is all the perfect end result of every single choice that you've made in your life, right up to clicking on, oh, I'm going to watch Jeremy's show right now. There's no accidents in a perfect universe. So yeah, this is what we are, and we are our choices and what resonates from within us. It amazes me, honestly, Jeremy, sometimes, like the more that I like get involved with what I'm studying and learning, and I'm always reading stuff, and everything there's so many just brilliant minds out there, and just people saying such like beautiful thoughts and words and spirituality. But, like the more that I read different authors and different messengers, there's still that common theme, and you can call it like an essence of oneness, if you may, but it all stems that we come from a source, and, life is not supposed to be hard. It's not supposed to be, and we're supposed to, revel in all of it. Yeah. Like I said, I don't like to deem things as like good and bad, because I'm totally non-judgmental. I don't like to judge anything. So I'm big with the word acceptance. I use it a lot, because to me that is what prefaces, I guess, an aspect of oneness, when we learn to accept life as it is. Like, just like, think about the word acceptance. It means that you're naturally going to give away some of your stress. I'm accepting it. I accept life, whatever it is. I won't say good or bad, whatever's happening in my life. When you come to a form of acceptance, that alone just helps. And I've always said that my biggest objective with my message is, yes, oneness, but I want people to live less stressful lives, and that oneness helps in so many ways.
There's an exercise that demonstrates what you were just talking about. And I always tell everybody to put their hands up like they're pushing against a wall. Yeah. And so you just do that, and you're going to feel tension in your arms and your hands. And then if you just bring them down by your side with your palms up, now you're allowing, and that's acceptance.
Oh, nice. I love that.
And so really, it's not about right or wrong, like you mentioned. It's about how do you want to live your life? Do you want to live it in allowing and acceptance, or do you want to live it in stress and anxiety and tenseness? And
exactly.
That's really the truth about it. So
exactly. And like I've always said that, you know, it's not like acceptance to me isn't agreeing with everything that goes on in the world. It's just seeing it maybe through the eyes of oneness. Some people like that. And to me, that says it simply enough. Yeah. You know, we look at it through a different frame, through a different frame of mind, through a different eye. You know, it's like, all right, I have to view this as I'm part of this whole thing right here, this one big now. So everything that has happened, everything that is happening, everything that's going, it's now, you know, and accept it like that. That is seeing it through the eyes of oneness, if you may.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Danny, any last bits of wisdom you want to give the viewers before we wrap up tonight?
Yeah, sure. I had the opportunity just over this weekend. You know, like I was asked to give the blessing at my best friend's daughter's wedding. And he unfortunately left us too soon last year. But, you know, like he was my best friend for about 54 years because we met when we were 6 years old. So you can do the math. But I was asked to give the blessing, and I like had to touch on the fact that his presence was the elephant in the room, because obviously it was just about a year. It's just about a year since his passing. And so obviously, like the both families still, we all still feel him. I still feel him. But I said to the people, I said, again, it goes back to what I mentioned earlier about there's only two aspects of life that everything emanates from, and it either comes from love or it comes from fear. And when you think about maybe if it's someone who you lost recently, or really anything, right? Like we were talking about, you know, you have that choice, you know, choose love. That was the theme of the message. We have an opportunity here, like to look at him, and yeah, I was upset when he passed, because, you know, to so many of us, it was too soon, but I can look at it from the other side of the equation and say, hey, I had a best friend for 54 years, Jeremy. You know what I mean? That's pretty cool. Who else can say? There's not a lot of people can say that. So just from that alone, I'm making a conscious effort to choose it from a different foundation, from a oneness foundation. Everything's going to be love or fear, my friends, and choose love, please.
Thank you. I'm very much blessed, and I've been putting up his website, that onenessguy.com, and it's also in the description of the show. So go check out his stuff and check out his books. Also on that website is links to his other websites, if you want to check those out as well. Any new things coming up that real quick that you'd like to chat about that are coming out? Or are you going to be
doing some performances? I've been doing some singing again, seeing that the pandemic's kind of loosened them up. So, you know, I'm back out there singing. As I was mentioning, I'm a singer-songwriter, so I get an opportunity to perform a lot. I'm doing some singing again, so I'm happy about that. I'm obviously still having the podcast. Speaking of the podcast, we have to hook up too, because I would love to reciprocate this and have you as a guest on that Oneness Guy podcast. So we'll have to talk about that too, Jeremy.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And next week, I will have a great guest on, Mo Rock, who is the owner and editor and our chief editor of the Los Angeles Tribune. He'll be coming on the show and we'll be speaking about leadership. So that should be a really powerful show as well. So stay tuned for that. And everybody, thanks for tuning in every week. And I will be doing my Monday show at 9 o'clock Eastern this Monday. So everybody be blessed.